Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club. If you're at all interested in anything we talk about in this episode, go ahead and check out the description down below, or if you even just want to know more about us, click on the links below. Now on to the episode.
Yeah, Coffee Experts Club.
Hey.
How we doing? We're down here in Belize. Let me show you this real quick. Just some cool Belizean vibes. Look at Drew over there. Pretty excited to be in Belize for a Coffee Experts Club down here for a quarterly visit. Me and Megan, which is awesome. Drew's always here, but it's Megan like John wants to support him. So I think I'm excited to be down here with Drew.
Love it. I love it.
Excited to have you here, buddy.
So Ben, why don't you kick off the topic?
Aha, there we go. Yes, I'd love to. I thought we could talk about just going from good to great in your shop. What do you do? And it's something that we're dealing with a few clients right now where they're doing well. They're actually doing pretty well. Their sales are basically running through the door. They're not having to work for revenue, but there's still issues that they could be better. How do you go from I'm doing good to I'm doing great, I'm doing amazing? And how do you get owners and how do you convince owners to make changes when they don't really seem like they need to? You know, how do you tell somebody, hey, you could be doing so much better if you did X, Y, and Z. And then they're like, well, I don't want to rock the boat too much. Like, you know, this, especially if you're talking about like a company that has only one shop or two shops, there's a lot of fear there. If what has gotten you to the point where you're successful now, like it's kind of hard to implement big changes because what if it doesn't work? What if you decide to bring in a new coffee supplier? What if you decide to start roasting yourself and your customers don't like it? You know, what if you decide you want to, you know, reduce your cogs line and introduce your own energy drink and your customers hate it? Well, that's your only cash cow right there. And if you mess that up, then you mess up the whole thing. So how do you go from good to great? And how do you kind of, how do you convince somebody or how do you even convince yourself to say, hey, I could be doing this better. I should make this change. And what are those changes? I figure that's a great place for us to start. So I'm sure a lot of coffee shop owners who do listen to us are probably in that spot of a one or two shop. And they're probably not, you know, if the shop wasn't doing well, they probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast. They'd probably be figuring out how they could sell it or get out. Right. So they're probably you're successful enough that you're like, what can I do to be more successful? How do we get them to change? So that's my thoughts for today, boys.
So let me kick it off, Drew, and then I'll kick it over to you because I think we're going to have to be selective on who unmutes. Otherwise, you're going to hear us in the background. So when Drew starts to talk, I'll mute, and then when Drew can mute. I would say let's also talk about bravery, right? Because I don't think that change comes without bravery. I remember Wes told me something back in the Roasters days, you know, when I was starting DrinkWorks, you know, because we have this development within Collab team where we'll help you develop your own energy drink. And so we helped roasters develop their own energy drink. And it was because Wes recognized he was spending like $40,000 a month on Red Bull. And he's like, if I'm going to spend $40,000 a month, why don't I develop my own and realize the savings? So, you know, he did just that. We helped him develop his own energy drink, you know, and called it the Rebel. Coming after Rebel, that's until he got to it. But as we helped him develop his own energy drink, he was able to save $200,000 in year one and build, you know, a whole new location. I've actually 2 new locations. I think he actually saved more like $400,000 and opened 2 new locations out of it, if I remember that right. But it took bravery, and I remember talking to him about it and doing DrinkWorks and offering it. You know, we went to a couple trade shows, a couple coffee tests. And, he said, "Hey, just so you know, don't get scared. I think most people aren't brave enough. I think most people aren't going to want to be brave enough to challenge it. Aren't going to want to be brave enough to buck the apparent. What if Red Bull is what everybody wants? What if I try my own thing and it doesn't work? What if I put all this money into it?" And so a lot of people stay frozen where they're at because they're not willing to be brave. So Drew, I know you've got a couple cost clients you're in the middle of right now that are doing some brave stuff. I thought maybe you could talk about some of the brave things that you've seen where people have actually done some innovation that's actually like created kind of an avatar for themselves that has actually been resulted in some great results, but it did require them to be brave and to challenge them.
Yeah, I think transitioning your business in any capacity, I mean, from 1 to 2 stores, 2 to 3 stores, 3 to 5 stores, or from a loose cannon, free-spirited, fun, and, you know, wild environment to a more structured and organized, ambitious type of business. There are elements you have to consider before you start making those changes, and a lot of them are going to come from you. You know, what are your shortcomings? What are the things that you are great at? What are the things you can handle? And really, how connected are you to your environment and your community? We have some clients who are in a position to transition into putting managers over locations, whereas before it's been like a multiple location per manager type of business. So really breaking off each store as an independent unit and considering the employees that they have in their possible management pool and talking over the benefits and the drawbacks of each person's skill sets. So in doing that, say one employee is just wonderful. They show up well. They're good with customers. They are fast. They're reliable, but they rub employees the wrong way, right? Mm-hmm. So that's an opportunity for growth in that employee. And in the same way for us, what things do I do really well? What things do I not do very well? And when I consider the things I don't do well, that's where I need to put my focus in order to grow the business as the leader. And so this other client, they're thriving in their element, in their area. Coffee shops just seem to do really well. It's like a holy grail of coffee land, right? And so if you open up a coffee shop, what is it that's going to make you a unique actor in the space? And I think that this client did something really cool. The area is pretty diverse culturally. So each location, not being super far apart, has a different type of demographic that they serve. And so being plugged into that information, what cultures are prevalent in the community, what is my main demographic that I'm serving, and how can I cater certain types of products to those customers, for example, a Latino community, or if we have, a more advanced aged community like black coffees, or if we have, a youthful community and we can push energy drinks or certain kinds of food products, or if we have scientists from going out to Hanford, they want to have breakfast on the way. How can we provide a certain kind of healthy energy breakfast? So I would say examining your shortcomings and that of your people, because that's what's going to hold you back or help boost you forward. And then offering unique types of drinks or food to the people that you're serving.
Yeah, I think you nail it on the head on what are your shortcomings. And I think one of the biggest shortcomings most of independent coffee shop owners have is that it's that we always talk about it's their biggest shortcoming, but also their biggest strength, where it's a bootstrap mentality of, I can just do this. I'll just get in there and do it. The shortcoming of it is that they then, when there are those moments where they have to be really brave, it's like, I've worked so hard to get to this point. I can't mess up the secret sauce. I can't mess up the special sauce. I've worked so hard to get that employee to where they at. I don't want to, because what if they leave, or what if I add something new to my business that ruffles the boats with my people too much and I lose people. So that bootstrap mentality is really great because they can really build special shops, but at the same time it can hinder because you've done so much yourself and because you've built this thing up like a little baby of your own. It's hard to make those big changes, and that's where I think, like you're talking about, Aaron, the bravery comes in, and it takes sometimes an outsider like us, like we come in with our clients and say, hey, you guys are really successful. I mean, a client we work with now, like, super successful. And I've told them multiple times, I'm like, you guys basically just turn the open sign on and you've got 9 cars in line. Like, you're not have to do anything. Yet their car times are 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 7-minute car times, where it's like, you guys are doing good, but you could be so much better if we just tweaked a few things. And it takes the bravery on their part to say, okay, let's make those changes, knowing that, maybe some of their employees won't like what they're changing, or maybe, it's going to be a bit of a hard transition because they're doing things that they're not used to. They're out there running with handhelds, or they're instead of offering every flavor under the sun, and their cogs are huge because they buy every single syrup from every single provider, maybe we would have let down. So there's a lot of changes that I think owners can make, as long as they take that bootstrap mentality and say, okay, I know I built this with my bare hands, blood and knuckles, and I'm gonna make some big changes so I can go from that good to that great.
And I think, let's acknowledge some things about bravery. So I remember when we started with Wes, we did that energy drink to finish that story. So we did do that. We created our own energy drink where we started serving it out the windows, and we got a couple of bad reviews, right? Because the taste buds are going to change, right? It's a little bit of different change. I remember Ben, Wes had a pretty good freak out moment with you and me on oh, we can't do this. We need to go back. People are showing and we're like, no, let's look at them now. And so, Ben, I remember you told a report and you're like, look, energy drinks have actually trended 10% up from where we were last month at the same time. So even though it feels like it's scary, look at the data, right? So I'd say give yourself somewhere to be able to evaluate it. It's outside of emotion, because any step of bravery is going to have some tangle of fear. You know what I mean? So realize nobody comes into something brave not being afraid. And in the middle of it, you're going to have a knee-jerk, holy shit moment where you're like, do I just eject and jump out of this? Or do I actually pull into doing it? Do I lean into it that way? And so I think that it's super important to to recognize the bravery and to step into the bravery and to realize they can't be afraid and it's the bravery. Just to take that step. I know Drew, you have a number of clients who had really recognized they're in the middle of a strong Latin market and is doing something that is different than what we see a lot of coffee shops do. I don't know if we want to talk about that because I think another unique recognize the avatar, lean into the brave. Okay. Ben, can you still hear me okay?
You're getting kind of muffled.
So just, okay. Try that again. Is that any better?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay. So just repeating the question is, bravery-wise, we had a client that recognized that there was a target demographic that she could really hit if she leaned into it. Mm-hmm. And maybe talking about coming up with a new specialty that's maybe different than most coffee shops do around, I think it was horchata. Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was she's one of Drew's clients, right? That's here locally, and locally we have a really large Latino population here in the Tri-Cities. And what she did was she leaned into horchata. I think Drew mentioned that they're actually making their own horchata there at the shops, which is different than what you'll find at most other coffee shops. I mean, there's not really any other coffee shops I know of, at least in our area, that's actually making their own horchata. But knowing that your demographic, that's something that's like Drew mentioned, is culturally specific to them. She's effectively capturing a giant piece of the market just by offering one product that nobody else really offers and is leaning into it. It actually reminds me a lot too of the guest we had on quite a while back. Was it Bentley's? And they leaned into people's pets. And that, speaking to the point of bravery, it is a big step to say, hey, I'm going to focus on this niche. When in most often cases, when we talk to coffee people, they're like, I want to be able to be everything to everybody. I want to make myself so vanilla that, anybody who comes in, they're going to have a great time. They're going to like me and they're going to have, a good experience. Whereas these people are like, no, I want to be a little brave and say like, sure, you can come in and enjoy my coffee shop. But if you're specifically this type of person, you're going to love my coffee shop. And I guess that kind of follows the good to great scale too, of you can be a good shop and just offer everything to everybody. Have 1,000 Torani flavors. Everybody who comes in can get a cantaloupe, white chocolate, melon, guava, Red Bull. Or you can say, no, I want to niche down, instead spend my time on making my own horchata that I know this specific demographic is going to absolutely love, and I can capture that entire demographic. It's two different styles, and one is definitely braver than the other. And I think it's showing that one side of it, if that niching downside, can really take what a good coffee shop is and propel it into a great coffee shop by capturing a whole market.
Yeah, we've had to get pretty plugged into the community here because Belize is just a little bit different. There's the coffee community hasn't quite grown into what it is in the States. And so we have to think of who would be our avatar, who's our ideal avatar. And for us here, it's a lot of call center folks. It's a lot of people who work at the local call centers because they get paid a little bit more. They get paid more frequently, more consistently, and they have a very regular schedule. And they're always 9 to 5, for example. So how can we plug ourselves into their routine and have those people come here? Because it's just a massive market. There's a lot of call center employees just here in San Ignacio, Santa Elena. So that's something that we did, was offer a unique offering to those specific employees that work at the local call centers. And then we have, of course, people saying things like, oh, what about nurses, or what about teachers, or what about police officers? And it's like, okay, well, we can run, like, I would love to run a deal for teachers every now and then, or a deal for the, police officers, but consistently I want to offer this $1 off discount or $2 off discount or whatever it is to the call center employees, so that every day I'm producing a little bit of that revenue that we can get from those specific customers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think too, like innovations, I think that as we move this flagship location here in San Ignacio, it's caused us to really rethink through a lot of like, what are we doing specifically differently now? Now it's become a bigger cafe. Now that we're, it's not just a walk by. It was like a drive-through model that was walk up before. Now it's a cafe. Has become more of a destination that people come to. Do we need to look at things like food a little bit more closely? Things that traditionally I have been resistant to. No, we don't want to produce our own tea. It'll distract everybody just from making coffee. So Drew and I had to really wrestle through, okay, so what are we going to do with that? So I do think that there's probably a need for a greater offering than maybe we had before as a business destination. I think too, things like delivery, things that they don't have down here in Belize the same way that we have in the States, and we're thinking through are there innovations that we need to consider that would be a blessing to the community, that even for us who've been here now several years and have experienced great success, that we need to consider challenge and grow and be brave? And all those things take infrastructure, right? All those things take planning. All those things take cost. And I think it can make you say, no, let's just be safe, which can be my tendency. And I know Drew really pushes me to like challenge that model. And so, but I think it's good because we balance each other out, because I can also be like, hey, but also let's remember how we got here. Like we know drive-through coffee really, really well. We know what works and what doesn't work. And so whenever we're trying something new, I'm always really slow to say, hey, let's make sure we make incremental change and not massive change of multiple things. Because then once you start changing different pivot points, then it's like, okay, but which one's affecting the business now? So I would say, as we get brave selectively, get brave specifically, try one new thing, give it enough time to make sure you know, did this work, did this not work, before you try your next big brave thing. So that way you can really see, is this growing, hold it against the cost, make a good decision, and should we continue it? So I think even something like delivery, or like all these different things that Drew and I are talking about now, we're talking about starting with a very choice case study group. Like, let's try offering it only to these people. Let's try offering it only this way. And I think that in that, we can determine, does this work, before we just commit to it wholesale. So I think even brave steps that are calculated rather than just wildly just shooting into a crowd, and hoping that our marketing is working. Like, let's be very specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one of the, speaking of product offerings, one of the pitfalls that a lot of owners will hit is they want to be brave, they want to offer something new, they want to be innovative. And so it becomes just an addition instead of an addition plus a subtraction. So for example, you talk about making their own energy drink. A lot of coffee shop owners will say, okay, I'll do that, but I'm also going to hold on to Red Bull, and I'm also going to hold on to Lotus, and I'm also going to hold on to Rockstar. And it's always add, never subtract. And so they've done this innovation. Their sales, they're seeing an increase in sales because of it. But now their cogs are blowing up because they're carrying 12 different types of energy drink in their shop, and they're having to order all of these things. If you're going to make a change, or you're going to add something, don't be afraid of the flip side too of, okay, now I probably should also remove something. If I'm going to, be brave and make my own energy drink, maybe I just cut Red Bull, and look at the numbers. I'm only selling, now that I've got this new energy drink, I'm only selling a case of Red Bull a week. It's like 24 people. Do I really need to have that cogs line still? Can I say, hey, let's give those 24 people a special deal, on the energy drink. Energy drink's $1 off if you bring in an old Red Bull can. Let's innovate that way. Get rid of that cogs line. And as you innovate and as you're making brave new steps, you're not bloating your entire business behind you as you're just adding and adding and adding and adding and adding. I think it's super important to keep in mind as well as an owner.
I'd also like to talk about real quick, in the same sense of being brave, going from good to great, how to handle your team in that regard, because we're having some growing pains going from, as we've mentioned, we've been trying to introduce and plug in some innovations and expectations. What kind of messaging do we use around provide an opportunity for the team to succeed and excel from where they used to be, where they are today, where we want them tomorrow. And I mean, it's been a little bit difficult for some of the older guard because we do have employees who've been with us from day one. As we all know, the culture of a coffee shop when you first start is pretty loose. It's pretty fun. It's pretty light. It's easy. But then you start adding in 24 more employees, which is a dozen more paperwork, buddies, and more difficulty. So in what way, can we approach taking the team that we have? Because ultimately we love our team. We want to keep our team. And how do we sharpen their skills in the direction of painting the picture of this is where we want the coffee shop to be. And this is what I'm going to require from you in order for us to get there.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. It makes me remember Roasters. When we first opened Roasters, our first location, we had an Xbox 360 and a TV hanging in the corner. And Wes's whole spiel was like, we're the fun place. You can play Xbox on your shift when there's no cars. That lasted about 4 weeks. The Xbox was gone because he'd come in. And of course, we're all playing Guitar Hero, but between cars, there's no messes. Like a car comes up and we're like, oh, hey, let me put down my controller real quick and I'll come make your drink. So that didn't last long. And then fast forward to when I started managing the Road 68 shop, it was like, look, guys, everybody has a towel on their hip. where this is the fun and games is great. Like you said, when our first location, because it is fun, it's something new. But at a certain point, you do have to make that line of like, hey guys, this is a business. And the way that I always approached it with my employees was, hey, as long as we're all focused on the shop being successful, we're all going to be successful because of it. If we can drive and through our hardline systems, and yeah, I might have rules that you don't like. Why do I have to wear a towel on my hip every single day? It's not just for the fact of the towel on the hip. It's to set a line of like, we have standards here as a business. And the whole point of that is so that this shop is as successful as possible. Because if the shop is successful, we're successful. You get hours, you get tips, your wages go up, your tips go up, as long as we're all focused on the shop being successful. And that's kind of the best way that I found to approach it with your employees. Like, yes, there's new standards, there's new expectations, but all of this is pointed towards making you better and giving you more. And if you can communicate that, I think you can really bring people on board.
Yeah. And I mean, bottom line is right? All of us want someplace cool to provide to our people to work, but if it's not serving the customer better, like I think that's what has to come down to every single time, right? Like how can we serve the customer better? How can we give them a better experience? How can we be quicker? How can we be more engaging? How can we want more people to come here? Because the more volume we drive here, the more opportunity it gives us to give you raises, to create more opportunities, to open new locations, right? So I think innovation should always lead to, making this a better environment, a better experience for the people who are bread and butter, who are customers, And I think it's a really important thing to consider. I love it. I love the topic selection this morning, Ben. I know you kind of authored it with good to great. Drew, did you have a closing thought?
Nope.
Awesome. Well, apologies for some technical difficulties today with Coffee Experts, but I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It's nice to be down here in Belize with Drew. It's nice to be out in the shop. So check out some of the socials and see some of the posts and the pictures. And Drew, Ben, always good to talk with you. Coffee Experts, I hope you had a great day. And we'll see you next week here on Coffee Experts Club.
Thanks, guys.
Later, guys.